After many years of staying quiet, Willie Nelson finally opened up about the rumors that almost destroyed his career. He talked about the government raids that shook his life, the addictions he kept hidden for years, and the family members he wished he could have saved but couldn't. What surprised people the most was when he spoke about the fake news online claiming he had already died. Willie admitted that he understands why these stories keep coming back. He knows something the public does not fully see. His health has been declining faster than most people realized, and at 92 years old, he feels time pressing in on him. He said he wanted to tell his truth before it was too late. What he shared about his final years left fans around the world worried, emotional, and holding on to every word. Willie Nelson was born on April 29, 1933, in Abbott, Texas, a tiny farming town with fewer than 400 people. He came into the world during the worst years of the Great Depression, a time when hunger and fear were part of daily life. His parents, Ira Doyle Nelson and Murrell Marie Greenhaw, were still teenagers and struggled to survive by picking cotton, earning about $1 a day. That money barely kept food on the table. When Willie was only 6 months old, his parents divorced. His father left to look for work, and his mother moved to Oregon for factory jobs and rarely came back. Willie and his sister Bobby were left behind with their grandparents, William and Nancy Nelson. That early abandonment shaped him deeply. It gave him strength and independence, but it also left a quiet loneliness inside him that later poured into his music. The house they grew up in was small and simple, with no electricity or indoor plumbing. Life was hard, but steady. Their grandfather worked as a blacksmith and managed a small farm. Clothes were often made from feed sacks, and toys were whatever they could make by hand. A handmade coffin sat in the living room, reminding them that death was always close. Despite the hardship, their grandparents gave them discipline, love, and something that would change Willie's life forever: music. Gospel songs filled the house, and the Abbott Methodist Church became a place where Willie felt lifted and safe. He watched people sing together, felt the power of shared voices, and something inside him woke up. By the time he was 5 years old, music had taken hold of him. His grandparents ordered a guitar and ukulele set from a Sears catalog, a rare luxury in their struggling life. His grandfather taught him basic chords, and soon Willie was playing tunes at local Czech and German dances. Even as a child, he noticed people watching him. By age 10, he was performing regularly around Abbott and gaining confidence with every show. At 7, he wrote his first song. The church continued to guide him, shaping his spirit and wrapping his music in faith and warmth. These early experiences formed the sound and soul that would later make him unforgettable. Still, the pain of his parents' absence never left him. His mother's decision to leave became a wound he carried quietly. He grew up wondering why she never returned and what he had done wrong. That confusion turned into sadness and anger, emotions that later showed up in his voice. Willie would later say that people could hear his pain even when he tried to hide it. He learned about loss long before he understood love, and those feelings stayed with him throughout his life. Fame never erased them. It only gave him a way to turn pain into music. At 7, Willie wrote a song called My Little Red Top Pony after watching a neighbor's horse. He wrote lyrics on scrap paper while working long days in the cotton fields with his sister. The family often didn't have enough to eat. The work was exhausting, but music gave him a way to escape. His grandparents believed in his talent and signed both children up for music lessons through mail correspondence courses. Music became the thing that made the suffering easier to bear. Those cotton fields later gave his songs honesty, grit, and vivid imagery. School life was tied closely to the church. Willie sang in the choir, and Bobby practiced piano. Their grandparents had one rule: no playing outside until music practice was finished. That rule built discipline and a strong bond between the siblings that lasted their entire lives. They often performed together, switching between hymns and simple country songs. Their grandmother kept them grounded in faith and tradition, helping Willie balance the gentle side of church music with the rougher road he would later travel. At 9 years old, Willie joined local polka bands and earned $3 a night, which felt like a fortune. One evening, a bar fight broke out, and Willie was hit in the head with a pool cue, leaving him bleeding. It scared him, but it also taught him how dangerous the music world could be. He learned early that music could bring both joy and pain. By 10, he was playing at dances and fairs, performing songs like Stardust for tips. People saw his talent, but his family remained poor. During harsh winters, Willie had to pawn his guitar just to help buy food. Every time he lost it, he worked until he could buy it back. That guitar became a symbol of survival and determination. His grandparents believed in discipline. When Willie skipped chores, His grandfather punished him harshly. Yet the same man gave him a new guitar for his 13th birthday and told him to learn music instead of getting into trouble. That moment stayed with Willie. It taught him that pain and hope could come from the same place. The guitar became his safe place and the key to his future. By 17, Willie felt restless. He graduated high school in 1950 and married 16-year-old Martha Jewel Matthews that same summer. She was pregnant, and they had only $5 borrowed from a friend to pay for the courthouse wedding. There was no celebration, only fear and uncertainty. Willie was still dealing with the pain of his broken childhood while trying to build a family in deep poverty. He worked trimming trees and selling Bibles door to door. At night, he played honky-tonk bars for tips and beer. The stress destroyed the marriage. Arguments became violent, and their relationship grew dangerous. Those experiences left scars that later showed up in his darker songs. Their first child, Lana, was born in 1954, a year filled with fear and instability. The family faced repeated evictions and even lived in their car at one point. Willie hustled pool games to survive and pawned family heirlooms to buy diapers. Nothing felt secure, but music never left him. He briefly tried college, hoping agriculture would give him a stable future, but he failed and dropped out. Music was the only thing that truly called to him. Willie joined the U.S. Air Force in 1950, hoping it would give him direction, but an old rodeo injury caused severe back pain. He was discharged in 1951, an event he later joked saved him from being sent to the Korean War. He returned to Texas feeling lost but determined. He played nightclubs, worked radio jobs, and struggled constantly. In 1956, he survived a serious drunk driving crash that broke his jaw and knocked out teeth. With part of the settlement money, he bought a Martin acoustic guitar that became his most famous instrument. By 1960, Willie tried releasing his own record, but it failed badly. Discouraged, he burned many of his unfinished songs, not knowing one of them was crazy. Still, he kept going. He moved to Nashville with almost nothing, slept on couches, and played wherever he could. A small songwriting deal changed everything. His song Hello Walls became a huge hit, finally proving his talent had value. Soon after, Crazy became a massive success, pulling him out of debt and changing his life forever. Even with success, Willie never forgot how close he came to giving up, and that truth stayed with him every step of the way. In 1963, Willie Nelson wrote a song called Pretty Paper, a gentle and emotional piece inspired by a disabled man he used to see selling pencils and paper on the street during Christmas time. Roy Orbison recorded the song, and it became a holiday hit, reaching number 15 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. While other artists like Orbison were gaining fame and momentum, Willie was still struggling behind the scenes. In Nashville, he worked as a sideman, playing on other artists' sessions for very little money. Some nights he earned as little as $75 for hours of work that stretched late into the night. His fingers often went numb from playing so long, and he quietly hid his growing marijuana habit as a way to cope with stress and exhaustion. The pay was low, the hours were brutal, but Nashville was slowly shaping him, even when it felt like it was wearing him down. In 1965, everything shifted again. After a bar fight in Nashville where Willie punched a fan, he decided he had had enough. He walked away from the city and returned to Texas, hoping to reset his life. There, he opened a bar called Willie's Place in Fort Worth. The idea seemed promising, but the reality was harsh. The bar only lasted 6 months. The crowds were wild, fights were common, and the business was unstable. Still, something important happened during that time. Texas audiences connected deeply with Willie's raw, unpolished sound. They didn't want the smooth, controlled Nashville version of country music. They wanted honesty, grit, and freedom. Austin, Texas became the place where Willie truly found himself. The music scene there was different. Hippies and cowboys stood side by side, listening without judgment as Willie blended country, folk, and jazz in ways that felt natural to him. There were no strict rules, no pressure to look or sound a certain way. This was the beginning of what would later be called outlaw country, a movement built on independence, rebellion, and creative freedom. Willie was no longer trying to fit into Nashville's mold. He was breaking it. Even so, he signed another deal with RCA's Nashville division in 1965, earning about $10,000 a year. Despite the steady income, he still struggled to fit in. His 1967 album, The Sound in Your Mind, mixed traditional country with jazz influences and featured his unique gut-string guitar tone. Many traditional country fans didn't know what to make of it. They found it strange and unfamiliar. But hidden inside that album was the early shape of the outlaw artist Willie was becoming, someone unwilling to compromise his sound or identity. While his music evolved, his personal life grew more complicated. He divorced his first wife, Martha, in 1962 after 10 years filled with chaos and pain. In 1963, he married Shirley Colley, a fellow musician. But the marriage didn't last either. By 1967, Willie had already begun a relationship with Connie Koepke. The truth came out years later in 1971, when Shirley discovered a hospital bill for their daughter Paula that listed Connie as the mother. The marriage ended soon after. Willie later admitted he had been with Connie for years before Paula was born. His growing success and tangled relationships fed into each other, adding layers of emotion, guilt, and longing to his songwriting. In 1970, Willie teamed up with Waylon Jennings, and together they captured something powerful. After a long poker game in Fort Worth, they wrote Good-Hearted Woman, a song that spoke directly to restless musicians who felt trapped by Nashville's rules. It celebrated loyalty, struggle, and freedom. The song became an anthem for artists who refused to cut their hair, soften their voices, or change who they were just to fit in. Underground recordings like Shotgun Willie began spreading through smoky bars and living rooms, quietly building the foundation of the outlaw movement. In 1972, Willie signed with Atlantic Records, a move that gave him more creative control than he had ever had before. He recorded Shotgun Willie in New York with producer Doug Sahm and other respected musicians. The album blended traditional country with jazz energy and rough edges that felt honest and alive. One of its standout tracks, Whiskey River, later became Willie's signature concert opener. The album sold about 500,000 copies and marked the moment Willie fully stepped outside the box Nashville had tried to put him in. He was no longer an outsider struggling to be accepted. He had become a leader, and outlaw country finally had a clear voice. In March 1974, Willie released Phases and Stages, an album that felt unlike anything country music had seen before. It told a complete story about a failing marriage, split into two parts. One half was told from the woman's perspective, and the other from the man's. The songs explored heartbreak, divorce, and the quiet pain that lingers long after relationships end. Willie recorded the entire album in just 2 days at Muscle Shoals in Alabama with talented musicians like Fred Carter Jr. and Barry Beckett. Producer Jerry Wexler encouraged Willie to sing over a rhythm and blues-style backing band, giving the album a bluesy, emotional edge that pulled listeners in. Willie worried the album might fail, especially since concept albums had not always worked well in the past. But this time, it connected. Bloody Mary Morning reached number 17 on the Billboard Country Singles chart, and the album climbed to number 34 on the Country Albums chart. Slowly, people realized they were hearing something special. It wasn't just a collection of songs. It was a story that felt real and timeless, setting a new standard for storytelling in country music. In 1975, Willie took an even bigger risk. He released Red-Headed Stranger, an album so simple and stripped down that executives at Columbia Records nearly refused to release it. They thought it sounded unfinished, too quiet, and too raw. Willie had recorded it for only $4,000 over 5 days, a fraction of what most albums cost at the time. While other artists spent hundreds of thousands of dollars layering sounds and instruments, Willie argued that adding more would ruin the album's emotional power. After much hesitation, Columbia finally released it as it was. What happened next shocked everyone. Red-Headed Stranger shot to number 1 on the Country Albums chart and sold more than 2 million copies. Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain became Willie's first number 1 country single. The album proved that honesty and simplicity could be just as powerful as polished production. Its success funded large tours and changed how the industry viewed creative control. Willie had won the fight to be himself. But while his fame grew, serious trouble was building behind the scenes. By the mid-1970s, his manager had invested much of Willie's money into risky cattle and oil tax shelters. When those investments collapsed, Willie was left exposed. He ignored warnings and focused on touring and partying with Waylon Jennings. By 1977, bad financial decisions left him owing the Internal Revenue Service $2 million. Over time, penalties and interest pushed that number beyond $16 million. In 1990, federal agents seized nearly everything he owned, including awards, guitars, and master tapes. It was a devastating blow. Fans stepped in, buying his belongings at auction so he could later purchase them back. The experience nearly broke him, but it also made him stronger. He learned how quickly money and security can disappear when trust is misplaced. Still, he kept moving forward, refusing to let the setback define him. In 1985, Willie joined Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, and Chris Christopherson to form the supergroup known as the Highwaymen. Their debut album was released in May of that year, and the title track Highwayman reached #1 on the charts for 3 weeks. They filled stadiums across the country, with each show earning around $1 million, split evenly among the 4 members. Despite their strong personalities and complicated pasts, their bond on stage was undeniable. Together, they represented the peak of the outlaw spirit in country music. Even before that success, Willie had written one of his most famous songs in a simple and unexpected way. In 1980, during a flight with director Jerry Schottsberg, Willie scribbled lyrics on an airline sickness bag. That song became On the Road Again. It captured the truth of life as a traveling musician, always moving, always chasing the next show. The song reached #1 on the country chart, crossed over to the pop charts, won a Grammy in 1981, and earned an Oscar nomination. At the time, Willie was playing more than 150 shows a year, and the song turned the exhausting grind of touring into something joyful and meaningful. In 1984, Willie reached an even wider audience when he recorded To All the Girls I've Loved Before with Julio Iglesias. The duet became a global hit and introduced Willie to listeners far beyond the country music world. Suddenly, he was not just an outlaw hero or a country legend. He was a worldwide star, proving once again that his voice, his stories, and his honesty could connect with people everywhere. The song quickly became a huge success. It reached #5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and went all the way to the top of the charts in Canada. Julio Iglesias' album 1100, Bel Air Place, sold more than 4 million copies around the world, and the duet earned awards from both the Country Music Association and the Academy of Country Music. Willie made about $1.5 million from the song, and he used that money to buy his ranch in Luck, Texas. That moment proved something important to the music world. It showed that music did not need borders, labels, or strict categories. When 2 artists from very different backgrounds came together honestly, the result could lift everyone involved and reach people everywhere. The year before that success, in 1983, Willie teamed up with Merle Haggard to record Poncho and Lefty. The song was written by Townes Van Zandt, and at first, no one realized how powerful it would become. Willie's daughter Lana played the song for them, and after hearing Emmylou Harris sing it, something clicked. They felt the story deeply. The album Poncho and Lefty was released on February 5, 1983, and it quickly climbed to #1 on the country albums chart, where it stayed for 8 weeks. It sold more than 3 million copies and earned a Grammy Award. The story of 2 drifting outlaws, told in a soft and haunting way, fit Willie's image perfectly. It felt honest, lonely, and real, just like much of his life. Even with all that success, not everything went smoothly. In 1986, Willie starred in the film Red-Headed Stranger, based on his famous album. The production felt troubled from the start. At one point, police raided his trailer and found marijuana, which caused filming to stop for a time. Willie did not panic. He laughed it off, returned to work, and even improvised lines that reflected his real-life struggles. The movie did not do well at the box office, but over time, fans began to see it as a cult classic. It became another example of how Willie's work sometimes took years to be fully understood. Willie never stopped experimenting with music. He refused to stay in one lane or follow expectations. In 2005, he released an album called Countryman, which blended country music with reggae. The project included well-known artists like Toots Hibbert, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and Gwen Stefani. Many people were shocked by the idea, but even more shocked by the result. The album won a Grammy for Best Reggae Album. Very few country artists had crossed genres so boldly, and even fewer had been rewarded for it. It proved once again that Willie trusted his instincts more than rules. Alongside his music, Willie's activism was always present. In July 1985, Bob Dylan made a comment at the Live Aid concert about American farmers losing their land. Willie listened closely. By September of that same year, he helped launch Farm Aid in Illinois along with Neil Young and John Mellencamp. The goal was simple but powerful: raise money and awareness to support struggling farmers. By 2017, Farm Aid had raised more than $50 million. Willie closed nearly every concert, speaking directly to the crowd and urging people to care. During the 1980s, hundreds of farmers were losing their land every day, and Farm Aid became a lifeline. It showed the world that Willie was not just a musician. He was someone people trusted to speak up when it mattered. Then came one of the darkest moments of his life. In 1990, the IRS claimed Willie owed $16.7 million because of illegal tax shelters created years earlier by his management. Federal agents seized nearly everything he owned, including his home, his recording studio, and even jewelry belonging to his daughter. Willie spent 2 years sleeping on his tour bus. Some angry fans, who did not understand the situation, even threatened him. To raise money, he released an album called the IRS Tapes in 1991. It brought in about $3 million. By 1993, he settled his debt after paying $6 million. It became one of the most public financial collapses in music history. Still, Willie survived it with patience and determination, proving once again that he could endure almost anything. Trouble had followed him long before that and continued afterward. In 1978, he was arrested in the Bahamas when customs officers found a single joint in his jeans. He spent the night in jail, was released, celebrated, and ended up breaking his nose. The judge later dropped the charges but banned him from the Bahamas for life. Willie accepted it and never returned. In 2010, at the age of 77, he was arrested again in Sierra Blanca, Texas, after police found 6 ounces of marijuana on his tour bus. He paid a $500 fine and avoided jail, but the news spread everywhere. Government agencies had targeted him before as well. During the 1980s, DEA agents raided his ranch more than once. Willie fought back by suing his accountants for fraud and continuing to release music to stay afloat. Even at his lowest points, he found ways to move forward. His activism went far beyond music and marijuana. In 1972, Willie was jailed for protesting the Vietnam War. Later, he joined protests against nuclear energy and even faced arrest for opposing nuclear power in Texas. In 1990, he was stopped in Hawaii for having loaded guns in his car. He never backed down from his beliefs, even when they caused trouble. He believed that standing up for what mattered was more important than comfort or safety. The deepest pain of all came on December 25, 1991. Willie's son Billy, just 33 years old, died by suicide at his cabin in Tennessee. Billy had struggled with alcohol and had entered rehab in 1990. He was trying to change his life. Friends said he seemed hopeful the night before, but the next morning, he was gone. Willie said it was the most devastating moment of his life. He later wrote the song Healing Hands of Time in his son's memory. The loss changed him forever, leaving a wound that never fully healed. His family carried other quiet struggles as well. Renee, born in 1953, remained mostly out of the public eye until she was officially acknowledged in 2012. She battled addiction, as did her sister Paula. Paula began using drugs in her teenage years and later entered rehab in San Diego. Willie admitted openly that he had not always been there for his children. His career kept him constantly on the move, and those miles were filled with regret he carried quietly. Through all of the chaos, one person stood firmly beside him. Annie D'Angelo met Willie on the set of Honeysuckle Rose, and they married in 1991. When the IRS claimed he owed more than $30 million, Annie stepped in without hesitation. She studied the finances, helped negotiate settlements, and never once made the crisis about money. She simply said she was already fine and asked how she could help. Their marriage survived everything, even when bankruptcy felt close enough to touch. In recent years, Willie's health became another challenge. In the summer of 2024, he cancelled several dates on the Outlaw Music Festival due to worsening emphysema. Decades of smoking had damaged his lungs, and at 92 years old, performing took far more effort than it once had. He had already stopped smoking marijuana in 2019 after pneumonia scares and switched to edibles instead. Fans worried about him, but Willie continued to perform whenever his body allowed. In 2025, strange death rumors created by artificial intelligence flooded social media. Fake images and stories showed Willie hooked to machines or collapsing. The rumors spread quickly and frightened fans around the world. Willie responded in his own way. He posted a simple photo of himself resting on a couch and joked about it. His calm humor cut through the panic and exposed how dangerous false digital stories could be. Now, at 92 years old, Willie Nelson stands as a living cultural landmark. He has sold more than 200 million records over 6 decades. He received Kennedy Center honors in 1998. He continues to release new albums, including Oh What a Beautiful World and Working Man, and Willie Sings Merle in 2025, both earning Grammy nominations. He practices Tai Chi every day, mentors young artists through luck presents, and still hosts concerts at his ranch. Even after a lifetime filled with struggle, loss, controversy, and triumph, he keeps moving forward with the same steady rhythm that has carried him since the very beginning.